Hey there. In a world that can feel pretty chaotic and just uncertain, it's not always easy to find something to hold on to. So today, we're going to dig into some of these timeless promises from the Bible, verses that have been a source of incredible strength and comfort for people for centuries, especially when life gets tough.
So, before we jump in, just think about that for a second. When things feel overwhelming, where do you turn? For this explainer, we're going to focus on one specific wellspring of resilience that has been a rock for so many. All right, let's get into it.
So, our journey starts with something we all know well, fear. This first part is all about promises that speak right to that feeling of anxiety, offering this incredible alternative of God's presence and a deep, lasting peace.
Okay, right out of the gate, this verse from Isaiah doesn't just say don't be afraid. It tells you why. The promise isn't that scary things won't happen. The promise is that you won't go through them by yourself. It's this active declaration of support. I will strengthen. I will help. I will uphold. Just knowing you have that kind of constant companion is a powerful, powerful antidote to fear.
So that's the whole idea, right? It's all about shifting your focus. It's an invitation to lean into that idea of a supportive presence and to let trust start to fill up the space that fear used to take up.
Now, this one is so interesting because it almost gives you a spiritual game plan. It lays out these steps. Take your worries, turn them into specific requests, and then offer them up with a sense of gratitude. And the result it promises isn't that your problems will magically vanish, but that this incredible peace will stand guard over your heart and your mind. And I love this one because it completely flips the script from defense to confidence. It uses two really powerful metaphors. God is a light to guide you when it's dark, and as a stronghold, which is like an unbreakable fortress. So when you feel like you're both guided and protected, well, that question, whom shall I fear, it kind of answers itself, doesn't it?
Okay, let's move on to our next section, because after you confront fear, you still need the strength to just keep going. These next few verses are all about finding the power to endure and the promise of renewal when you feel completely and utterly drained. Oh, the imagery here is just wow. It's not about just scraping by. It's about a total transformation. I love the progression, from walking to running to soaring like an eagle. It just paints this picture of spiritual energy that doesn't just help you survive, it actually helps you thrive.
What's so powerful here is that strength and courage aren't presented as feelings you have to somehow find inside you. It's framed as a command you follow. And the reason for that command, well, once again, it's that promise of a constant presence. The instruction is to act with courage because you're not alone, no matter what path you're on.
This slide from 2 Corinthians is so fascinating because it just gets real. It fully acknowledges the reality of hardship. It says, yep, you're going to be hard-pressed, perplexed, maybe even struck down, but then it hits you with this paradox. You can go through all of that without being ultimately destroyed by it. It's such a profound statement about resilience, where the struggle itself doesn't get the final say.
And that idea of enduring leads us perfectly into our third theme, finding a safe harbor when the storms of life are just raging. These verses are all about God being the ultimate source of safety and security.
Okay, so before we look at the verses, let's get on the same page with this word refuge. It's not just a place to hide, it's a source of active protection from whatever's causing the trouble. Just keep that idea in your head as we look at these next few. It doesn't get much more simple or direct than that. This verse is like a cornerstone promise. It connects that idea of refuge directly with strength and really drives home that this help isn't far away or only there sometimes. It's ever present, right there with you in the middle of it all. This passage, it just uses such beautiful, intimate language. The idea of resting in the shadow suggests you're incredibly close to your protector. And it makes that promise so personal. It's not just a general truth, it's a declaration. He is my refuge, my God, in whom I trust. Now, what's really important about this famous verse is what it doesn't promise. It doesn't promise a life without any darkest valleys. What it does promise is a comforting, guiding presence right in the middle of them. The rod and staff, those were a shepherd's tools for protecting and guiding sheep, so they symbolize both the fence and direction.
All right, for our final section, let's pivot from just getting through the present to looking towards the future. These are the promises that give us a sense of hope and purpose, assuring us there's a divine plan, even when we can't see the road ahead.
This is one of the most beloved verses out there, and for good reason. It speaks to that deep human need to believe our lives have meaning and aren't just random.
The promise here is of a future that's guided by a good and loving intention, a future designed for hope, not for harm.
And that is such a key point. When you believe in a hopeful future, it can totally change how you experience right now. It reframes whatever you're struggling with as just one part of a bigger, purposeful story, instead of just meaningless pain.
This verse takes that idea even further. It suggests that somehow, all things, the good, the bad, the really confusing stuff, are ultimately being woven together for a good purpose. And notice the wording. It doesn't say all things are good, but that they can be worked for good as part of a much bigger plan.
And let's end this section with this. It's so realistic, but so hopeful. It acknowledges that a life of faith is not a life without problems. In fact, it says you may have many troubles. But the ultimate promise is about deliverance, not always from the trouble, but through it.
So, as we wrap up, you can see we've kind of walked through this four-part journey. We started by facing our fears with faith, then finding the strength we need to endure, then seeking shelter in a divine refuge, and finally anchoring ourselves in the trust of a hopeful future.
And that brings everything back to you. As we finish up, just think for a second. Which one of these ideas or verses really stood out to you? Which promise feels like the one you need to grab onto today? Because the real power in these words comes alive when we make them personal. Thank you so much for joining me.